It is now desperation time for the Blue Jays, and it's kind of their fault. So let's talk about it. It was an epic game, and look, we've been saying we want the Blue Jays to be playing meaningful baseball. They are playing in the World Series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So it doesn't get any more meaningful than that. And I hated every minute of that. That's an exaggeration. I didn't. It was a wild ride last night for all of us who were watching, right? And how many times, Blue Jays fans, have we watched those games and other teams have them, right? How often have we watched the Rangers and the Cardinals have the classic game that they did and just be kind of laughing along and enjoying it and then thinking to ourselves, boy, can't even begin to imagine what it would be like to watch your team in that atmosphere, in that game. Well, now we got it. As the Blue Jays play in, if I could put emotions aside, genuinely one of the wildest, craziest, and one of the best baseball games in the history of the World Series. And it's cool that to watch your team play in it. It sucks to watch your team lose it. I have right now on the Twitch poll and on YouTube in a poll as well. Can you still enjoy the highs from last night? Because there were some. We'll get to them in a little bit. That would be burying the lead if we just started off with, hey, there were some good moments, but I'm genuinely curious. If you're watching this after the fact, let me know in the comments. But if you're watching now, let me know in the chat or let me know in the poll. Can you still enjoy the highs from last night? Because this was a really, really, really exciting, entertaining, insane baseball game that the Blue Jays played in. But it's still heartbreaking. And Toxic makes a good point in the chat. Can one of the options in the poll be ask me in 2 months? And that's kind of where I am at right now. I did have a couple moments out, the sun just rising over the Rocky Mountain. Well, not over the Rocky Mountains. That'd be the other way around. But the sky's at least orange and beautiful. And looking out and dogs running around, not a care in the world. Probably running off some built-up tension that she had last night because one of her owners was just yelling, "Fuck!" at the TV for 6.5 hours last night. So she's going around and you know what? Like, yeah, that sucked. But like, I got to watch the Blue Jays in a classic World Series game, calling my parents at high moments. So then avoiding calling my parents for about 3 hours because there weren't any. I was like, that was really fucking cool, man. That was really, really cool. And then you get inside and okay, you know what? I think I'm coming out of it. I think I'm coming out of it a little bit. And then someone posts a clip and you see Davis Schneider rounding third, and then you see the throw waiting for him at home. And it's like, nope, can't enjoy it right now. So I thought I had a moment of clarity. I thought I had a moment of, okay, I'm over it. We can move on. Boom. And then you get a little reminder of what happened in that game. And it just turns back into anger and disappointment. And I will say, like, I can be an emotional person. And I come on here and I talk really fast and I talk with a lot of emotions and I can get fired up about things. But generally speaking, and people may not believe this, generally speaking, I don't let sports affect my day-to-day too much. Like, it is my life, obviously. Like, I mean, look back there. And that, it would look all like that even if I didn't have this. I have dedicated my life to covering sports, talking about sports, enjoying sports. So obviously, like, there is a part of it there. But for the most part, like, if my team loses, I'll be down for a bit. And then, okay, let's get something to distract me and move on. Like, let's go for it. Like, I am, because it's weird because anxiety-wise and everything, I'm all over the charts. But when it comes to sports stuff, I tend to be able to just like, okay, let's go for it. This one's going to stick with me for a while. This is the most emotionally taxed I have been after watching a baseball game or any sporting event for a really long time. I would say, and this isn't going to be a universal one, but I would say the closest for me is as a Saskatchewan Roughriders fan, 2009, when they won. And it was oddly enough, kind of a similar situation, not the longest game in the history of the Canadian Football League, but it was the Riders were the underdogs. They were taking on Montreal, who were the Dodgers of the time, and they had them beat, and then it was too many men on the field, and then all of that. And then I was working at TSN at the time and had to work on the fucking post-game show after it, so just got to relive it over and over and over again. But that's about as close as it has been for me. Otherwise, like, even the first couple of games of the Dodgers series, it was like, okay, well, let's watch the game tonight. But this one is just, it's sticking with me. And it's going to be one of those ones that we think of for a really, really, really long time. And because there are a number of different factors that you can point to. Obviously, when a game goes 18 innings, you had chances to win this game. And there are a number of reasons why it did not go the Blue Jays' way. But I've asked this in the chat on YouTube. And I guess for the rest of you, you can answer along as well. Or for those watching after in the comments. I personally think the Blue Jays lost this game more than the Dodgers won this game. I think when you look at some of the mistakes that Toronto made, I think that they did more to harm themselves than I think the Dodgers did to help themselves, if that makes sense. Toxic agrees with me in the Twitch chat. And I think the biggest culprit is the bad send on Davis Schneider. And look, there are times where you can say, you know what, make the perfect play. That's fine. And the Dodgers did. For the record, they did. And that is part of it. That send makes sense against the Yankees. We talked about it in the Yankee series, where I am willing to bet that you're not going to hit on the 3-play parlay that is field the ball cleanly in the outfield, throw it to the cutoff guy who throws it to home plate, and they get the tag. I was willing to bet that the Yankees were going to screw something up in that whole exchange. That I felt very confident in. The Mariners, ugh. The Dodgers, no. Like, Tommy Edman makes a couple of really good plays in this game. The IKF one, that sucks, but I can see where he was coming from. That is being aggressive on the bases, and that is like making a guy run over, make a sliding play, and then throwing it across the diamond. Like, that's a hell of a play. That one I didn't have as much of a problem with. But this one with Schneider, this isn't, oh, well, Dodgers made a perfect play. Make a perfect play. When Smith catches that ball and he turns to tag Schneider, Schneider is not in the screen. Like, that's not make them make a perfect play. They could have bobbled it, thrown it home. Will Smith could have had it get stuck in his mask, pull it out of his mask, put it into his glove, and still had time to tag Davis Schneider. It's a bad send. It's a horrendous send in that situation. And not even the Vladdy part of it, because Vladdy was going to get as many swings in that at bat as I would. He was going to get walked 100%. But still, it's the bases loaded with Isaiah Kiner-Falefa coming to the plate. You take your chances with the bases loaded in that situation. I don't get it at all. It was aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, and this is where this team has fallen into some traps in the past. And I appreciate aggressive base running. I celebrated it against the Yankees, but the Blue Jays have, at times, run into some really stupid outs. And when you think of the Twins series a few years ago, the wild card round, where Vladdy gets picked off at second, they've done so at some really inopportune times. Ernie Clement did in game number 2. It's one thing to be aggressive. It's another thing to be dumb. Ernie Clement getting thrown out at third base in game 2 was dumb. Davis Schneider getting thrown out at home plate with second and third and 2 out is dumb. Like, I don't get it. And I can understand again what they're saying on the broadcast, because you are saying, yeah, make them make a perfect play. But they made a perfect play and then it wasn't close. It's one thing if it's make a perfect play and then it's bang bang at home plate. Like, Teoscar Hernandez going to third base with Vladdy throwing him out. That is make them make a perfect play. Vladdy made a 1-of-1 play on that to get the out. That is one where it's like, okay, you tip your hat and you move on. This one, there was some margin for error there with how off Schneider was. And Toronto, it does feel like they can just go, this is what we do, so this is the blanket of all situations. And it was the pitching changes and everything in the wild card rounds when they were struggling, and now it is aggressive base running. We always take the extra base. We always do this. It's like, well, sometimes you shouldn't. You know, it would be like, it's a horrible comparison, but it's like, you know what? I always speed. I think speed limits are dumb. So you know what? I'm just not a ton, but I go 10 over every time. And then you see 4 cop cars with radar lined up on the other side. It's like, nope, this is what I do. And just, okay, you're going to get caught. Bad example, unrealistic, but I'm hurting today, so just let me have this one. It was just bad. Just because the Dodgers made a really good play doesn't excuse the fact that you made a really, really bad call in that situation. And the other, I guess, bit of reasoning for that was brought up on the broadcast was, well, I mean, the Jay, there's 2 outs, and the Jays, like, you've already strung a couple of hits together. Do you really think you can do that more? That's what this team's done all year. And we'll get to that part again in a second here. But that's what they've done all year. That has been the calling card of this team, is this next man up thing, and just keep the line moving, keep the line moving, keep the line moving. So yeah, being aggressive and going first to third on a bloop to right field, go for it. But trying to score with Davis Schneider, who, bless his heart, we're not going plus speed here. You know, if you're sending Miles Straw in that situation, fill your boots. You know, if you are sending one of your speed guys around, then okay. But Davis Schneider isn't that guy. And to trust that that's going to work and to be out by that much is just horrendous. Horrendous call that ends up costing the Blue Jays in this game. The other one is, well, the other big one, I think, was pulling Barger. And I think this is being like too cute by a half with this, where they bring in Miles Straw to pinch run. And if I'm not mistaken, Barger's at first at the time. I understand the reasoning behind this one more than the Schneider send. I understand you get some speed out there. We are a bit of a limited lineup. And so let's try to manufacture something in this situation. My issue is, unless you're going to steal second with Schneider, or sorry, with Miles Straw, the advantage, I think, of bringing in a speedy guy in that spot kind of goes away. Barger isn't slow. You're not bringing this in for Anthony Santander. He's not a burner, but he's faster than Davis Schneider, I think. I haven't looked at the baseball savant stuff to see sprint speeds or all of that, but he is a pretty quick dude. And so I think any play that Miles Straw was going to score on, Addison Barger, from first, Addison Barger would have as well. If you get Barger to second and Straw comes in then, that makes a little bit more sense because there are some singles that Straw is going to score on that Barger just wouldn't. But when you bring him in to pinch run at first, anything to the gap is scoring Barger. Like, Straw isn't scoring from first on a bloop single. He might go first to third, so maybe you get a bit of advantage. But this is where it is just okay, well, we just need the faster guy out there. But what advantage does that really give you? Because anything that Straw is scoring on, again, a double or anything like that, Barger would have as well. So I don't think you really gain that much by bringing the speedier guy in that situation. If you want to bring him in again when Barger's at second because a single could score him, fine. But a double scoring Barger, just like a double is scoring Straw, and nothing else is scoring Straw. So what are you really gaining in that situation? I thought it was a really bad move, and then it gets piled on because every time Straw came up after that was a high leverage big moment at bat that it really would have helped to have Addison Barger in the ballgame for. And so that was a really, really tough spot. And I think a miscue by John Schneider, just kind of going with a default, we just need the faster guy in there. I think that was trying to manufacture things. And honestly, I think it was a bit of overmanaging from John Schneider, who, we'll talk about him in a second. I think he did better than people are giving him credit for. But that was one where it just didn't work out in the way that the Blue Jays needed it to. The other miscue, we actually have a couple others that I want to get to. But first, misery loves company. So share this video with your Blue Jays fans, friends, and we can all just wallow in self-pity together around this game. The other, I think, real big one that's going to stick with me is Nathan Lucas swinging at ball 4 3 times against Clayton Kershaw. And I understand it's Kershaw out there. And I think that's where Lucas kind of got into it a little bit. But like, it's 3-2, and baseball's a tough sport to watch with slow motion because these guys have to react like that. Like the reaction time you need is insane. But to quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for. Not that Lucas is making a lot of it, but when you get to this level, you kind of have that part figured out, right? So when you are with 3 balls and 2 strikes, following a pitch down to the point where you're in a squat position and you're reaching and swinging, I think you can take that pitch, you know? And I do think that there was a little bit of being in awe of Kershaw. I think there was a little bit of recognizing the moment and trying to be that guy. And I think it was just, he lost the plot on that, Nathan Lucas. And so that was a big one because Kershaw getting to the Dodgers bullpen was always the goal, right? But in that game, the way it was going, it felt like, okay, these guys are dealing, but if you can get to Kershaw, he's the one that you can get because of the ineffectiveness that he has at this point. And you got him. I don't care it's a lefty-lefty. I don't care anything else. You had him. Had him. And you let him off the hook multiple times, swinging at ball 4 with Vladdy coming up. And they love to say on the broadcasts that Lucas knows his job is to keep the line moving and get Vladdy there. And it seemed to me like he kind of lost it in that moment and lost what he was supposed to do. And I think that is part of a bigger picture of why this game went south for Toronto. Understanding that they don't have the big bashers in the lineup. Like, someone posted it. I retweeted it after, or reposted. Sorry, X. The Blue Jays ran out a spring training lineup that looked better than the lineup they had by the end of this game today. I guess it was today. Yes, by the end of Game 3, that lineup looked like a spring training lineup and not a good one. So, what frustrated me was the Blue Jays went away from what makes them successful. They didn't strike out a ton still, which was great. Put a lot of balls in play. That's fine. But it did seem like really when it got down to Vladdy and the Blowfish, it felt like everyone was trying to be the hero. I think that's where Nathan Lucas kind of fell into it a little bit, where he was trying to get the hit. He forgot what his job was. He forgot that he was supposed to be the line mover. He forgot that he was supposed to be the one to set up the guy who has hit the most home runs in postseason history for the Toronto Blue Jays, who's coming up behind you, who is playing at an absurdly high level. Not in this game, but for the most, like, your job is to get him to the plate. Your job is, however that happens, your job is to get that guy to the plate. And I think with the way that Lucas was chasing those pitches and everything like that, it felt like Lucas was trying to be the hero. And I think Ernie Clement fell into that a lot, where he's trying to drive the ball. That's not their game. It's fun that Ernie Clement hit a couple of home runs, but Ernie Clement, when he hits home runs, he's reaching, and it's the flip. Right, that one against the Yankees, it wasn't an MLB The Show perfect, or anything like that. It was oh shit, that ball left. Like, that's what it was. So for Ernie Clement to be up there and hero swinging drove me up the wall. And everyone on the Blue Jays was doing it. Basically from the 13th on. From that Lucas at bat on, the Blue Jays were trying to win this game with one swing. And that's never been the way that they do it. But they do fall into this a bit. I do think there are some times where they believe their own hype, read some of the headlines, and see that, okay, we're this team. We can. I'm Nathan Lucas. I'm the Cinderella story of this whole thing. I can come out and really make this. And people forget what their job is. Just string some hits together. Just put a couple good at-bats up. That Dodgers bullpen should not have done that to the Blue Jays yesterday. I don't care that it was Ty France and Heineman coming in. Heineman had the best WAR on the team through July this year. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's not as much of one as you think. He was a very productive backup catcher for Toronto. And to have him up there and just like swinging for the fences, and Lucas swinging for the fences, and they all end up as just lazy fly balls to left, center, and right. That's just never been this team's game. And so I think you had a bunch of guys who were trying to be the hero who aren't in the hero role. you have to understand what your role on this ball club is. I will never forget the when teams would win the World Series, they would send out the DVD of the season and of the World Series. And on the season one from '93, when Joe Carter comes up, there's two guys on. Why are the two guys on? Because Paul Molitor, one of, unquestionably, the great hitters of his time and maybe of all time. Not Mount Rushmore guy, but he's at least on a list of one of the best hitters in the history of this sport. He comes up with a runner at first, and I think there's two out at that time. Either way, he comes up with this situation. The Jays are down by one. There is a runner at first. He has the opportunity to live out the dream of every child who has ever picked up a ball, tossed it, and tried to hit it. He has a chance to win the World Series. And he goes up there, and in the interview, and now maybe this is just him being able to say this after the fact, but I don't believe that's the case. He goes out in the interview and says, "It took everything in me to not try to win the World Series here, but that's not my job. My job is to just get on and set the table for the guy who's had 100 RBIs in every season he's ever existed as a human being. So let me do that." The Blue Jays needed more Paul Molitor. Instead, they all tried to be Joe Carter, and there wasn't a Joe Carter in the bunch, aside from Vladdy last night, who also had a bad game. Like, that is a big part of this as well, is that the dude on the other side, Shohei, has the greatest game in the history of the World Series, and Vladdy's sitting here at 1 for 8. Now, it's hilarious because you see that, and his numbers, he's still hitting 400 for the playoffs because he's been insane. And so I'm not going to be, well, you know what? Vladdy needs to be better. He does, but we can give him a break because he has been absurdly good this whole playoff. But they needed him last night, and he wasn't there for them also. The very, very, very frustrating part of this whole thing is that the Blue Jays did what they were supposed to do. Glasnow mowed him down in the first with 8 pitches, but then they worked it. They were able to work these counts. They were able to get his pitch total up. He threw 70 pitches over the course of 3 innings. They got to the bullpen in the 5th inning. And they did get some runs off of them, right? Like, they were able to get a couple of those big moments and capitalize. It's just they kept throwing to Shohei, and he kept absolutely drilling baseballs out. That was the other one. Pitching to Shohei in a 1-run ball game was a mistake. And when he's the potential tying run, you can't. That one, like, I don't begrudge someone for pitching to a player in that spot, but Dominguez, you can't leave that middle. And Dominguez had a pretty bad game. Like, control-wise, he was all over the place. So, I mean, there is that situation, but you got to where you wanted to get to. You had the Dodgers bullpen, what was it, 4 2/3? So, at the time, we assumed that they needed to get 16 outs. Now, that turned into, what would that be, 43? But at that moment, it was, you need 16 outs from this bullpen? What are we doing here? And so, like, that was the chance. They did everything they were supposed to do, and then it all fell apart. That was the game to be able to do that in. Back in the chat, Toxic on the Lucas thing. Yeah, that was a bad at bat. Oh, it was so bad. It was so frustrating to see that. You still haven't talked about the terrible Bo error, which cost them a run, probably. Yes, that's true too. I was going to do the umpiring thing at the end, but I'll go for it now. That was, and I want to state it. I know, I got the Blue Jays on here. You can see there's a Blue Jays hat in the background. It is obvious where my allegiances lie. I want to state for the record, the umpiring was not the reason that the Blue Jays lost. It was not the second biggest reason the Blue Jays lost. It was not the third biggest reason that the Blue Jays lost. But that was genuinely one of the worst officiated games I've seen at a championship level in my life. And I am talking about, like, provincial baseball that I played in as a kid to this. Like, that was horrendous. And I'm getting on Nathan Lucas for chasing some of those strikes and expanding the zone too much and chasing ball 4 a few times. A couple of those, I could justify it because the strike zone was so all over the place. You had no idea where it was. And it wasn't consistent because you would have one on the inside of the zone and they would call it a ball. Really bad call. And then, like, you would get, it wasn't even borderline pitches that were missing. It was, like, I wish I had a baseball around here, but This was a long time ago, but at an umpiring clinic, we were kind of told if you want to, like if the baseball's touching, you basically have like the strike zone and then a full baseball's width away. Basically, if you can get it in there and just kind of half touching the zone, you can get that. Some guys, even on the outside, will give you a second one just because pitching's hard at those lower levels, whatever. But like these were bad. These were a couple of balls out of the zone. And the Varsho one was inexcusable. And it was obviously an umpire who was upset at Dalton Varsho, assuming that it was a walk, and then calling him for a strike. And I saw something today. Well, Varsho clearly could hear that the umpire said ball, or said strike, and he kept going to first anyway, so this is on Varsho, which I kind of understand a little bit. I do want to state for the record that I don't know what it was, whether it's just the Sportsnet broadcast that we got in Canada or if they had it on Fox as well, but that ump was either mic'd up or very, very close to the field mic last night. And so with how loud that stadium can be, I genuinely think we could hear the umpire better than Dalton Varsho could. And to him kind of have that half kind of, okay, yeah, did you? No? Okay. Like, it wasn't an obvious, or something like that. It was strike two. Like, it was just a quick little whatever on a pitch that no one had any right to think it was that. Now, it looks really bad on Bo getting thrown out there, but I don't know what he is supposed to do in that spot. Like, you're never, until you have someone just stand on first base until Varsho gets there and then you start your trot to second, like, that is a situation that comes up 1,000 times a year in a baseball game, and that never plays out in that way. And so you see Varsho give a bit of a hesitation and then toss the bat, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess it was, because there wasn't a demonstrative or anything like that. You can see where Bo gets caught up in that. And so that was so infuriating because Varsho does then get on and Kirk does get a hit and it would have scored or at least loaded the bases and kept that pressure on. And instead it kind of takes away from that moment and it puts you in a bit of a combative state already. And it puts you just behind the eight ball, it feels like, all game. And so to have a game go to extra innings to the extent that it did, and you have an umpire's call that so blatantly cost you a run, it gets very frustrating. I will say, I don't think this was an umpire who was playing favorites. I think he just sucked. Like, I don't know if that makes you feel better or worse. He was just really bad at his job. It wasn't, he wasn't favoring the Blue Jays. He wasn't favoring the Dodgers. We got a few on the Blue Jay side, too, that helped out. Like it was just a horrendous strike zone, in an otherwise beautiful baseball game last night. The other thing I do want to mention is that there's a lot of people putting this on John Schneider today. I don't think this is all on Schneider. It is very easy to look at the lineup that was out there for the Jays when the game ended and say, hey, maybe the manager did a bit too much in this spot, but Springer got hurt. So you're not that tough situation. Can't do it. Bo is definitely not healthy. And you put Isaiah Kiner-Falefa in at a time where it kind of felt like Bo was done for the night, right? Like in a regular game, IKF may not have come to the plate again. Or if he did, it would have been late and you would have had a couple of things happening there anyway. That was the time to bring Bo out. And like he has a play there where did Vlad score on there or did he go first to third? But there was an obvious double that Bo stretched into a single. Like he is not healthy. I will say he looked good swinging. Like the bat is back a little bit. Now, I think they will see how he reacted to breaking balls compared to how he reacted to fastballs, and he's not going to see another fastball this series, but the bat is there, the legs aren't. They just aren't. And so when you are getting into a tight situation, pulling him for a runner makes all the sense in the world. The Barger one, it's a really bad call. And I think that cost them. 100% I do. But the other ones, and Kirk, like people are getting on him today. I don't know if I was just looking too much into it, if I was tired, if I was hallucinating. Kirk was obviously hurt, right? Like it did not look comfortable for Alejandro Kirk. Now, it never does, just based on the construction of that human. But he didn't look comfortable. He looked like something was obviously bothering him. And so that was the time to get him out of there. So the moves that people are getting on John Schneider for are all ones that I think was kind of taken out of his hands anyway, with the exception of the Barger one. The only other, I guess, scenario that he may have mismanaged in hindsight is Bassett only going 1 inning. But at that time, you're not managing that assuming that this game's going 18 innings. If you knew that, then yeah, you keep Bassett in for 6, right? And you try to save as many guys as you can. But Bassett's not really stretched out in that way. Like he is, again, like we talked about with Bo, these would be rehab assignments for him. Instead, it's against the Dodgers in the World Series in a bullpen role. So he's not stretched out for 4, 5, 6 innings. Now, neither was Lauer, and then all of a sudden he puts on a heroic performance. But Bassett did the job that he needed to do. Dominguez wasn't as effective as he needed to be, and you probably weren't going to get another inning out of him like that. And so you needed that bridge. And so, like, yes, in hindsight, it would have been good for Bassett to eat 2, 3, 4 innings. But if the results play out differently and Bassett serves one up and all of a sudden Teoscar Hernandez is trotting around the bases, then everyone's sharing their Zach Britton memes saying, oh, hey, look at that, a game-winning home run in a playoff game, and the closer is sitting on the bench. That one, maybe you could have used someone else in that spot, but you didn't trust anyone else there. Bassett is the guy in that bullpen, in that spot that you trust in that leveraged of a situation. In hindsight, yeah, extra innings for him would have been good, but he did the job that he needed to do and that the Blue Jays needed him to do at the time. So that one I don't get on him for at all. This has been a long segment. Toxic was saying that it's going to take an hour to talk about this game. We'll probably get there. But I do want to state there were some highs for Toronto in this game. And some things that, again, once the dust settles on all of this, I will remember for the rest of my life. The Vladdy throw to first base. To make Jimenez to get to that ball, throw it across the diamond in any sort of a way. Vladdy to recognize what is happening, get it, go across, and throw a dart across the infield while falling, and put it in a perfect spot. Clement with the perfect tag, boom, baby, and he's out. Perfect play, and just another one. Like it's the Altuve play. It's all of that. It has been so great. And I know he needed to be better in that game, but it's been so great to see everyone recognizing the immense amount of talent that Vlad Guerrero Jr. has and everything that he has going into being this high caliber of a player. And because when he signs that contract, everyone's talking about how it's an overpay, $500 million. I even said on here, maybe it's a little bit of an overpay, but you can't let that guy go. And he has now backed it up. He is into another tier of baseball player with what he has done in this postseason. And that defensive play is up there as well. Like just an unbelievable moment in a postseason full of them for him. Max Scherzer was excellent. You got everything you could have wanted out of Max Scherzer in this game. They pulled him at the appropriate time. All of it. I thought he was great. I thought he was really, really excellent. And to get the 2 starts that you got out of him is something that this team, I think, should be celebrating. And then Eric Lauer, the job that he did coming in when, like, he was one of their best starters, and certainly one of their more consistent starters for a pretty good stretch there. But then because of the baseball reference page and everything like that, he gets tossed aside and he goes to the bullpen. He's not stretched out, and he comes in and has we are talking about him today in glowing terms. People are buying Eric Lauer jerseys today if the Blue Jays are able to win that ball game. It was incredible to see him do that. And then Alejandro Kirk is having the series of a lifetime again with a couple of big hits. Like he was locked in against Glasnow yesterday or earlier today. And to be able to have him in the lineup when they need that from him has been great. And another just leveling up moment for him. So there were some bright moments for the Blue Jays in that game. It's just going to take us a long time to remember them and think fondly on them. So those are my Blue Jays thoughts for game number 3. We're going to have a lot more on game 3 coming up here in just a matter of moments. But again, we do stream these live multiple times a week here on YouTube, youtube.com/@CouchPotatoDiary. We're close to getting that thing removed, but also streaming these on Twitch and Kick. The next live stream, we're not... Unless the game tonight is insane, we're not going to do a live stream on Wednesday. That's kind of my catch-up on everything else day. But we will do another live stream 10 a.m. on Thursday. We'll either be talking about the Blue Jays on the brink of elimination, or we're going to be talking about Toronto with... an opportunity. Oh man, we might be talking about... All right, so Thursday we're doing the live stream Thursday, and we'll be talking about the Blue Jays, and we'll see if my heart can take it. We may have a bonus one on Wednesday. We will see how this game goes. But yeah, make sure wherever you are watching, hit the follow button, hit subscribe. All that stuff really helps out a lot.